Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, brought to you by City Current and powered by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance. This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are giving back and making a difference, so we can learn and do the same. We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose. Now here's our host, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're in for a treat focused on the theme of education today. We're here with the president of Christian Brothers University, John Smarrelli. How are you doing, John?
Jeremy, it's great to be with you. This is a very unusual thing for me, so you can help me guide me through this project. Talking about myself is unusual for me to do, so it's great to be with you.
I was going to say, we usually have you coming on. We've had you on The Spark, our radio show, all the different media, talking about the good work being done on the campus at Christian Brothers University, which is actually right down the street from our Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance office, so that makes it very easy to see the good that you're doing driving by every day. But for today's conversation, you're right, we're focused on you, your story. So let's go ahead and start with where you grew up. So give us an idea of where you grew up as a child.
Great. Okay. Most folks don't know this, but I grew up in Syracuse, New York. I'm the child of Italian immigrants. Both of my parents were born in Italy. And certainly that's influenced my life going forward in terms of some of the projects we're even doing here at CBU. But they came when they were young. My dad in particular was a very, very special individual. He born in Italy, came just around World War II, was here probably less than a few months before he went into the Army. He served for the United States and in the Army, didn't know English very, very well, and was in the Battle of the Bulge and some amazing wars in serving our country, and spectacular, sort of influence on me. And when he returned from the war in the mid-40s, he met my mother, and they married and resided in Syracuse and lived all of his life there, and was really just a powerful influence. In fact, he just recently died at age 94 and a half, and it's a loss for all of us, because that generation was just a very, very special generation and had just great influence on me as a person, as a professional, and as an educator.
So was the household bilingual?
It was not. The thing that was very interesting in those days, and I think, again, influenced me in terms of even living in Memphis, is the fact that my parents, both of whom said, "You're in America, we're not going to speak the language." Because as you thought about Italians during that period of time, there was significant discrimination occurring for that population. The Irish and the Italians were the individuals who were being discriminated against. And so my parents very strongly felt that we had to speak English. We're in America, we have to speak English. And so in a typical Italian family, you are surrounded, however, by your aunts, uncles, grandmas. And so within like a 2-block radius, we had about 5 different houses of different family members, from uncles to cousins to grandparents. And so my grandmother particularly kept the language, and so we learned the language from my grandmas. We'd go over to my grandma's, and we'd have a meatball or two, and we would learn the language, because she never would speak English. She would speak Italian. So I learned Italian from grandma, but couldn't really speak it well, but it wasn't part of my mother's and father's household. And in some ways, we certainly lost a lot of culture because of that. In other ways, I understood what they were trying to do, and as protect myself and my 3 siblings from that kind of discrimination that they were feeling in terms of coming to America.
How did they learn English? I mean, was it, obviously you're bringing it back from school, so that's one piece of it.
My father earned a GED, a degree, and my mother went to a more traditional public school, and at that point in time they learned the language. And then my dad being in the war, he sort of picked up the language then, and my mother just continued to learn the language, and my dad always had the accent. My mother sort of lost it for some reason. My mother was sort of more the professional person in the family, and my dad always seemed to have the little bit of Italian accent that he kept with him. And what I've inherited is the ability to talk with my hands, and so I've got I use the hands quite extensively. So that's my Italian language, is the use of my hands.
Give me one tradition. When you think about your family and growing up, what's one tradition that stands out?
It was a pretty incredible tradition about family. Dad's family was important to him, and the visitation of Grandma. I mean, every Sunday, and we were a Catholic family, as most Italians were in those days, and so we would all get together as a family. All my three siblings and I and my mother and father would get together. We'd go to 10 o'clock Mass at the local church. But then afterward, without question, we'd have to stop at Grandma's house. And Grandma spoke, I mean, we had two grandmas, and this grandma spoke absolutely no English. So we're sitting there in the middle of Grandma's house, the kids, bored and wanted to do anything except that. And so we're sitting there with Grandma and, trying to converse, and not much is happening. And so, but that was a Sunday tradition that we as children hated, but now as sort of a 60-plus-year-old individual, gosh, wouldn't I love that for my own children to come out every Sunday with our grandkids and just kind of be there, just a sort of a family by presence. And then we go home, of course, and then have the Italian dinner, the pasta on every Sunday, because that was just the rule. And then we would, with Dad particularly, we'd watch the football Giants. The Giants were New York Giants were a team, and to this day I'm still a Giants fan. And again, living in Memphis, that's unusual to be a New York Giants fan, but I've been a Giants fan because there were only two stations in those days, and one would show the Giants and the other one would show something else, bowling or something.
Although we'll say at this point, being a Giants fan with Eli Manning at the quarterback, you probably have a lot more of the Ole Miss and the Memphis fans now cheering for the Giants than you probably have in many years before.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough, Jeremy. So,
outside of talking with your hands, what's one either trait or a bit of advice that you take from your parents that you still apply to this day?
There was a certain work ethic, both for my mother and my father. Crucial. I mean, what their thing was, the way you succeed in life is generally by outworking anybody else. I mean, if you've got a job to do, you better do it, and do it in a way that's 150%. That really, for them, was a crucial thing. So my dad would, to work two jobs. He would work two jobs. He'd work in a factory for General Electric. In Syracuse, there's a big General Electric plant. He'd work in radio, TV for probably 40 years of his life. Again, a highly unusual thing of loyalty. But then he'd work a second job. He owned a corner grocery store. And he would work that. And the reason was, and that's the second thing I want to just provide, is education. For them, the way they were, for their children, the crucial piece was for us to go to college. There was no options at that point in time. They believed strongly that they didn't want us to live the kind of life they had to lead, the struggling kind of life. So really what they did is, for myself and my three siblings, they worked the extra amount of time in order for us to be able to afford a private school education. And that sort of, again, has influenced my life dramatically. The significance of how college can be the bridge out of poverty, the bridge of opportunity. And clearly it's been the case for myself and my three siblings. One is I'm college president, and my younger sister is a CFO, and my brother owns a company, an IT company, and my other sister's a high school educator. It really has sort of been what our parents wanted us to be because of the significance of education. It certainly has influenced my life dramatically.
Share a little bit about your college experience and then how you got involved in education, in the field of education.
I really, college to me was important. And even in high school, I was an athlete. I loved athletics, and so I really, athletics for me was, I had grand visions of playing center field for the New York Yankees, replacing Mickey Mantle when I was a kid. But getting to college, it became the significance of study. So my athletic skills clearly went away at that level. Unlike you, Jeremy, I know you as a good tennis player that you are. Unlike you, my skills were never equipped to be able to compete at that particular level. So really, what it became is, what was I going to do with my life? And in typical Italian mother fashion, my mother had two visions for me: either to be a priest or to be a doctor. Okay, that was sort of the two goals for her. So I went on to college as a biology major, thinking medical school would be the place to go. But really, what happened is, during the course of my college experience, I got to do some research and scientific research, and that became sort of just an eye-opening experience for me, to be able to do something no one's ever done before, and to do this research and to maybe make a difference in the world in which we live. So much to the dismay of my mother, I decided instead of going on after my 4 years as a biology major, instead of going on to medical school, I chose to go on to graduate school and get a doctoral degree in biochemistry, because I just saw that as just a grand passion and opportunity, and it really just that experience of research and that kind of opportunity, and to really make a difference and do something no one's ever done before, really just sort of influenced my experiences. So as I moved on to graduate school, graduate programs, and got my doctoral degree, I said, boy, this is great stuff. This is really exciting stuff. How can it be any better? You'd go in, and particularly as graduate school, you go in and work in a lab, and you'd basically you'd play with toys, really more expensive toys, and you do this activity, and you'd publish papers, and people would cite the papers, and you say, wow, this is good stuff. I'm making a difference. Again, the whole key of making a difference.
And you still got your doctorate.
And so I got
the label.
I got the label. I got the doctorate, and which then opened up lots of different doors. And for anybody who listens, the power of education,
right,
the college education in particular, it's unparalleled in terms of just the doors that it opens up for an individual.
And so carry that forward to coming to Memphis, because obviously,
sure.
I want to say transplant, but I mean, you have a chance to move here and
mm-hmm.
to settle your roots. And so I've been here now for almost a decade. And it was kind of on the same timeline as you coming to Memphis. So give us a little bit of the story of moving to Memphis.
Sure. Okay. Now I'm going to go backward just a little bit, because I think it all plays into that story. And you and I have interacted almost all that full amount of time, and I'm very appreciative of all your support and all your friendship, Jeremy. It's been great. But in life, you got to make decisions. You come to choices in life, and I had numerous ones along the way. After graduate school, after getting a doctorate, traditionally you go on to a postdoctoral fellowship. And so, I did that. I was at the University of Virginia for a few years as a postdoc. And again, another opportunity for you to hone your skills as a scientist. And then the point comes, what do you want to do next? Do you want to go into academics, or do you want to go into the industrial, the corporate world? And the corporate world was at that time a real important world, because my field of study was genes and gene manipulation and then genetic engineering, and so lots of companies were hiring folks like me for big salaries. But what I chose to do is, as a postdoc, I got a chance to teach, and in the course of teaching, I said, gosh, I love this interaction with students. I love getting into a classroom, shutting the door, and basically saying, you're mine, and let's learn together. And that's really been sort of the pivotal point in my life in terms of, financially, it's obviously I'm not a wealthy person at this point in time, and if I'd gone into the industry, I'd be a lot wealthier right now. But
that's the financial wealth, but you've got the personal wealth of knowing that you're making a huge difference and that you love what you do.
Exactly, and that's the key. It's all about these young individuals whose lives you're influencing, and that's really so I became a faculty member in Chicago for 18 years, and I was a faculty member in the biology department. I mentored students, I taught students, and that certainly has influenced where I've gone in a career. And then what happened was, as a scientist, I felt administration was, I'd like to do that. I love to solve puzzles. I love to solve problems. So I began to be a college administrator. So when I left Chicago, I was a dean of arts and sciences, and it sort of was a cool thing, because I could apply my scientific sort of logical thinking to an administrative position. We moved back to Syracuse. Interestingly enough, I took a job as a provost, and that's sort of the chief operating officer at a college or university. So I took a job back in Syracuse as a provost, and then had a chance to become interim president at Syracuse, and that was in the mid-2000s. And so I said, this is kind of cool stuff, being a president. Being a provost is sort of, let's make sure the trains are running on time. Being a president says, let's set the vision. Let's determine what the organization, the institution is going to do. And then you've got people working with you. And if that makes sense, you can create something very, very, very special. So after doing the interim presidency, we said it's time to look nationally for a presidential job. And so At that point in time, the CBU position, Brother Vincent Malum was the former president there. He died in a tragic car accident. And I think, God has providence for all of us. And so that job came open, and I said, Memphis, Tennessee? This Yankee from, who's never lived farther south than Charlottesville, Virginia, is going to come to Memphis, Tennessee. So the job came open. We came down here. My wife and I came together, and we said, interesting place. We looked at the mission of Christian Brothers University, and there's always a fit for different positions and different people for jobs. And in this case, it was CBU is a very, very special place and has a very, very special mission, that faith service community. And as we looked at that, I said, here's an institution that's a real sleeping giant. I guess sleeping is probably the right word when I came. Great place, but the brothers were always such humble people that they never really did, talked about the accomplishments of a university or the opportunities of a university. So, and they were looking for, the board of trustees in those days were looking for a non-brother president, really, a person who had some experience in higher education, a person who had a business background, who could understand business and the fact that colleges, you need to balance the budget, you need to have enrollment, you need to fundraise, that kind of piece. So my wife and I looked at Memphis, and I said, this is a community sort of in need of a university, an active university, a Christian Brothers University. So in many regards, it became a no-brainer in terms of saying, let's come with a mission. And that is a mission to sort of get beyond the 75 acres of the university, and let's use the university as a vehicle to make a difference to this community. And that's really what's attracted me so dramatically. I looked at Memphis, and again, what it had to offer, what potential it had. I looked at CBU and saying, this is a perfect match. And for me as an individual, this would be my next ultimate goal. I don't want to be at Ohio State. I don't want to be at a Big Ten university or an SEC university. I want to be at a small university that certainly cares about the community, that has a mission about the community, that has a 300-plus year charism by our founder, Jean-Baptiste de La Salle, that's been in Memphis for 140-plus years. Let's give it a try, not knowing anything. And again, being a transplant, being a Yankee transplant. And I can remember first being here saying, people introducing me saying, oh, he's a Yankey, but he's okay. And that was as good as I could get early on in my career at CBU.
One of the things I think that, going back to kind of the idea of ChangeMakers in this podcast, is that CBU, as you said, traditionally built on the idea of service, but you've taken that to a whole new level. And even when you talk about not only your service in the community and your volunteerism, serving on boards, but just your expectation of your administration, your team, the faculty, the students, all being heavily engaged with their volunteerism, with their time, their activation, their philanthropy. And I think it's really neat to see this not only on campus, but more importantly off campus, out serving with the nonprofits, doing the litter pickups, the Samaritan's feet, shoe distributions, washing kids' feet, giving new socks and shoes. I mean, really hand in hand, your students are participating in very big ways. Give us maybe one or two that stand out to you. I mean, you've got 30 days of service in September. I mean, you have so many really cool things. Here's your chance to tease the listeners a little bit, but give us a little bit of the flavor for the philanthropy side of CBU that really puts a big smile on your face.
It's been wonderful just watching what our students, what our faculty have been able to do. And again, we've got a September of service, SOS, 30 days of service, where our students, our faculty, our alums, administrators go out and serve a not-for-profit every day during the month of September. It's an incredible, thousands of hours of service to these organizations. And the key is we don't just say, here's what we think you need, but in fact we ask them, what do you need? From groundwork to business principles to whatever. To me, that gives me tremendous amount of pleasure. What's wound up happening to me is I get on these boards and they're all organizations that are poor, the Salvation Army, Catholic Charities. And what I'm able to do, because I serve on these boards, is to get our universities and our students involved in these. So, for example, Salvation Army, our students are out there at the Kroger ringing bells. And, in the middle of finals, we're dominating Kroger's on a Saturday and interacting with the community. And it's really a cool thing watching these kids ring bells. And they compete with each other. How much money can we raise in this particular day if we're at the Kroger's? With Catholic Charities, we're involved in some of their providing hope projects, and our nurses go over to Camp Love and Learn and work with the youngsters, the youngsters who are at Camp Love and Learn. The Salvation Army, we work with some of our nurses go over there and work with some of the women who the Army takes care of. And again, it's not extra. It's sort of part of the day life of a CBU student, faculty, administrator. And I think that's the key difference between some places where they do service as sort of an extra piece. This is part of our fabric, part of, I go back to faith, service, community. And service is not something that's a fourth wheel. It's a crucial piece to what we do. And that gives me great pleasure as a president to hear things. And there's so many things we don't even hear, and that's the cool part about it. I mean, there's so many, someone we stopped in the community and say, well, we had a CBU student here, and that's really kind of cool. And even our internships, really, many of our students do unpaid internships, and we've got an amazing career services office led by Amy Ware. And what she does is connects students with projects that are internships that are unpaid. They may get academic credit for it, but really, in essence, it's basically taking the expertise and the energy of a college student and making a difference to the companies in this area. So it's really kind of cool the way that works.
You got a lot of great accolades in terms of the value of the education at CBU, and also too just the fact that you're able to keep so many of the students here local to be able to go on and do amazing things right here in our own backyard. You've also got a lot of great projects going on and growth there on campus. Give us one or two teasers there in terms of just the accolades, but also too just some of the neat things that we can expect over the next few years.
Fantastic. The thing I'm most proud of is 96% of our graduates either are going on to jobs or going into graduate professional school. 96% of our graduates. Talk about the value of a college education. And studies have come out recently have suggested that college education makes a huge difference in earning potential over the years. And we're rated one of the top earning places too. So I'm very proud of the fact that our students are not only doing the service, but actually they're going to be financially rewarded in their own personal lives for that. So, but the other piece that's more interesting to me is 85% or greater of our graduates are staying in Memphis and making a difference. So what that allows us to do is say, let's recruit regionally, but let's see if we can find ways to make them stay in Memphis. So one of the things I'm very proud of is the internship program that I mentioned a few minutes ago. But internships at corporations, IP, FedEx in particular has been a great one. In fact, Fred Smith has been very, very supportive of CBU in terms of the internship program. We've got a program called the Pascal Fellows. These are computer science people, part of the smartest people we have on our campus student-wise. I shouldn't say that because we got a lot of smart kids all across. But these are computer science majors who are interning under a faculty member at CBU at FedEx. And what are they trying to do? Increase the efficiency of what FedEx is doing in terms of planes and how efficient that could be. Well, clearly these kids are going to be hired right into the FedEx organization because of the internship that they have, the opportunities they have to partner. And really for me, it's all about these amazing partnerships that connect our students with the Memphis community. And we say, okay, not only are you going to do service here, but you're going to be able to get a job here. And also culturally, you're also going to find ways to do that. The other thing we've tried to do more so is make Memphis a fun community for our students. So what we do every weekend is provide opportunities for our students to go out and have fun. Opera Memphis, Grizzlies, Redbirds. I mean, there's lots of stuff to do in this community. And that's one of my, when I came here, one of my frustrations is the native Memphians just don't see what an amazing community this is. And I've said that too many times. And a lot of our folks, like even yourself, have said that numerous times. then ask a native Memphian, and it's always, and you ask somebody who's transplanted, and you say, this is an amazing place. I just don't have time myself to do all the things that are available here in this community.
What happens in Orlando, too, is, you talk to somebody that lives there, and they're like, and it's like, you have Disney World in your own backyard. You don't even realize it. But it's one of those where, you're right. People don't realize if you're a transplant and you come in, you appreciate just the love, the support, the values here, the family values, the cost of living, the low commute time, the fact that the city is a top 50 market, but it's so interconnected and it has that kind of small town feel where everybody knows each other and is working together. And I think actually, to your point, that's a great bridge, because that's one of the things that I truly appreciate the most about Memphis is you have a top 50 market with global resources, FedEx, AutoZone, International Paper, ServiceMaster. It goes on and on and on. These huge companies that are based right here in Memphis, True Green. It just goes on. And so these are amazing global opportunities that students have, that professionals have, that families have. But yet you're in a city that's small enough to care. And so people like Fred Smith, you'll see him out serving. You have access to people like Fred Smith, Pitt Hyde. These are billionaires on a global level, and yet they themselves will be connected and giving with you. And I think that's a very rare thing, is when you have global executives that will roll up their sleeves together and serve with you, and you have that sort of access. What stands out to you, or what stood out when you first moved to Memphis, and especially now obviously being here for the years that you've been here, what stands out to you as what makes Memphis special?
That is a very, very significant piece that you highlighted. I have never seen organizations take such an interest in their local community, the FedExes, the AutoZones, the IPs. Never have I ever seen it. And I've been in Chicago, and I've been in New York, and I've been in Virginia, and I've been across the country talking to folks, and I've never, ever, ever have seen that kind of philanthropy, that kind of interest in their own local communities. These are multinational corporations, but who really believe in local. For me, that is just incredible, and I've never seen that, and I love that aspect of it. Look at Crosstown. One of the things that we're involved in. I'm honored to be able to be involved in Crosstown as sort of the chair of the founding board of the high school over there. But look at that project. It would be much more easy to have knocked down the building, but you put philanthropists like Staley Cates and the Wilson family and those kind of folks who believe in our community, who believe that a crosstown project can be transformative to our community. Why not jump on board? And people have done so, and it's pretty exciting. And I'm glad that we're a part of that particular project. It's another one of those things that's just very, very special about this community.
When you look at, obviously, you talked as being the president, it's very focused on the vision, setting the vision. So what's the vision when you look out over the next 2, 3, 5 years for CBU, for Christian Brothers University? What's one thing that you think is a really important piece that you want to accomplish?
What I'd like to do is one, make the university affordable to, and we are very affordable now. Compared to the University of Memphis, we're pretty close in terms of cost. But I want to really continue to fundraise so that those individuals who are of high potential are able to get a private school education. Because really, the small class sizes we offer, the opportunities to interact with faculty are second to none. And even engineering, where can you see a small school with 1,800 students having an engineering school? It's unheard of. So what I'd like to be able to do is increase the number of opportunities for students in this community, in particular, graduates of the Memphis City schools and Shelby County schools, to be able to come to CBU, afford CBU, graduate from CBU, and make a difference in the community. That's my first real vision. The second piece really is just retention. Clearly, once we get them in the door, we make it affordable. We want to find different ways of making it affordable. So our next piece of our campaign, which is a $70 million campaign, is to create a student life experience, a student engagement experience, which is going to enhance retention, which is going to enhance graduation rates, which is going to, again, increase the success of our local individuals. So if I can, leave this job and say, I've made a difference to this community, the community of Memphis, that vision will be out there. Again, you can start new programs, you can do stuff like that, and that, we're going to be relevant there. But I don't see that as what really floats my boat. It's sort of looking at these graduates who 6, 7 years ago, as grade school students, never thought they could get a CBU degree, and to be able to give them a diploma and say, they come to me and say, you made a difference. To me, that's what makes me excited about coming to work every day.
I love it. So let's switch gears. This is kind of the lightning round. We don't have any fancy name for it, but basically I'm just going to ask you a bunch of quick, simple answers. So they're quick, simple responses on your simple questions on my end, simple answers on yours.
I'll try to be short because I'm not generally short. But anyway, we'll go for it. I'll try to be good here, Jeremy.
So these are fun ones. So and there's no script or anything. I mean, none of this has a script. It's just me asking a bunch of questions and just learning about you. So let's start with a favorite vacation spot for you and your family.
The ocean. Anything with an ocean and waves, I'm there. I'm all over it. East Coast is fine. I mean, it's Florida, anywhere that has an ocean.
How many vacations do you like to take during a year? Big one, a couple of small ones?
Gosh,
what's your
given
preference?
my schedule, if I can get a week, I'm doing okay. So if I get a week at the ocean, I'm doing great.
Do you completely unplug, or do you take your cell phone and still have some?
In this job, you can't complete. I'd like to give great advice to individuals about life balance. I can't do that. I'm not very good at that. The cell phone is connected generally.
I can't either, so I'm with you on that one. All right, give us instead of just one favorite restaurant, we'll give you the option of listing multiple. Give us some favorite restaurants here in Memphis.
Okay, I love Central Barbecue. I mean, talk about I'm a very, very simple person, and
I'm by your office.
Exactly, I love Central Barbecue. You just can't get enough of Central Barbecue, and I know others who are listening to this may say, there's other better ones. Okay, fine, whatever. I love the Interim Restaurant. Again, a simple place on East Memphis. It's kind of a nice little place. I enjoy going there. I'm not much of a food guy. I wish I could say I was a real food connoisseur. I love what's going on in Overton Square. I mean, I just love those restaurants there between Bosco's and local, and I'm finding new places like that. I kind of like the out of the way sort of unique sorts of places, and that's really what I'm not a very fancy guy. So if you ask me about any fancy restaurants, I've probably never been to them.
What's a favorite place or favorite couple of places when new people come to town, or when somebody comes from out of town? Where do you like to take them?
If I can take them to a Grizzlies game, if their Grizzlies are in town, I like doing that. That's kind of really, really fun to do, and it's a great experience. And I've got access to a number of the boxes there through some of our supporters. And so if I can get a box at the Grizzlies game to take a person, it's an experience that's beyond belief. And I love the Redbirds. I mean, I love a summer evening. If there's ever a cool summer evening in Memphis, but when there is a tolerable summer evening, I'd love to take folks there. And it's a great stadium, it's a great family environment, it's a great product. I mean, it's a really super product, and so I love that aspect of it. So I'm really I'm a sports kind of guy, and I like to spend a lot of my free time sort of dealing with sports and those sorts of activities. But those are two places I will take them. Again, you want me to say Graceland? Whatever. I mean, I like Graceland, but that's okay. I'm not that much of a music guy.
Hey, that's the thing about Memphis. There's something for everybody, no matter what. So what do you like to do to relax? I mean, you mentioned sports, and obviously going and seeing sports.
I'm an avid tennis player. I'm not a good tennis player, but I'm an avid tennis player. And for me, it's just an opportunity. That's probably my only opportunity to sort of disconnect, because you can't bring your cell phone on the courts. No one would really like that if you're doing that. So you go out there, and I play with a bunch of guys who are sort of my level, older guys, and who are just friends. I mean, really, they have nothing to do with CBU, and that's okay. But the funny part is, it's actually created lots of relationships with CBU. So it's I gravitate toward those who are not associated with CBU, and eventually they become associated. So it's just one of those weird things. But for me, tennis is a real respite from the stresses of the job. And so I've got a number of groups. I've got at least a couple of groups I play with during a course of a week. And if I can get those matches in and be able to play those matches, it makes a huge difference to my mental health and otherwise. So I love the the whole playing of things. I'm not a runner, but I really do enjoy the tennis game, and I know you're a player also.
Say, yes, that's near and dear to my heart as well. Yeah. And you and I have been to many tennis matches and things together too. So, what's a favorite, either vacation or just a favorite memory with you and your wife?
We had a great trip. We associated with a Gulf South conference. We're a member of the conference, but we had an amazing trip. Actually, it was in Pensacola. We had the first part where the conference was, and then we drove to Gulf Coast, and we went to New Orleans after post Katrina, and we had a spectacular time there. Really, it was one of those things where it all came together real nicely. And again, I'm not a fancy person. I don't, international travel is, I do it, but it's not that big a deal. But being able to drive to New Orleans and spend time with my wife there, and just to see that environment, it's an environment I could never live in, but just to see the pseudo craziness, but the good food, the restaurants, just the opportunity. I had a great time. The other one I gotta say is Rome. My wife and I went to Rome. It also is part of a meeting. We generally, with my schedule, we usually coordinate meeting with a vacation. So we got to spend a couple of weeks in Rome as part of the meeting, but we had some number of time off. Just seeing Rome, seeing the churches, seeing the sort of the history there. We think in the United States, just our history is long, 200 years, wherever we are. You go there and it's like, the age of the churches, the age of the architecture, you look at the Colosseum, it's like, whoa, it certainly puts life in perspective. So that's another one of a memorable trip that my wife and I took.
Last couple. One is a favorite bit of advice from your mother or father.
Favorite? That... Again, the favorite, but maybe not the favorite, is, again, going back to the work ethic. Just basically the expectation that working hard is what you need to do to be successful. And I think I've adopted that, and sometimes to its extreme, but it's sort of you've adopted that piece of advice, which sometimes I begrudge my mother and father for giving me that advice. I said, why couldn't you just let me be, a little less type A? But, that doesn't happen. So, but I think it was a great piece of advice, an important piece of advice.
What's a favorite bit of advice you give to others, especially students, for success, for life success, business success, but just success in general? Find
a passion. And I can tell my own story for that. Don't go after the money necessarily. Find what's going to be passionate for you, that's going to allow you to live a life that every day you get up and say, I love doing what I do, and the money will come. The money will come secondarily, but find a passion in your life, and there may be multiples. Given current climate, current economy, people may have 5 or 6 passions in the course of a lifetime, but keep finding those passions and keep looking for those passions.
Last question is, what do you want your legacy? Obviously you're creating your legacy right now as we speak, but what do you want your legacy to be, especially here in Memphis?
I want people in this community who attended CBU to say CBU was a special place because they had a president who cared for us, and who wanted us to make a difference to this community. If that is the legacy, that will be carried on not just for one generation, but multiple generations. For me, that's important. Bricks and mortars, buildings, who cares? You need them, but that's not really what gives me excited. It's the development of people who will make a difference to their community, because they'll then pass that down, just as my parents passed that down to me.
Well, tell listeners where they can learn more about Christian Brothers University. How can they follow the conversations? Because, you guys do a lot in terms of social media. Even you now, I know you're getting into some color commentary for the sports. I know that was part of your bucket list. So.
Exactly. It's all fun. You got to have fun in these jobs. If you don't, then you're not carrying out your passion. But really, if you want to talk about our university, cbu.edu, there's lots about that. But I really love Twitter, and I'm at CBU president. At CBU president. I check my Twitter account, and I go through some of my life experiences right there, and it's kind of fun to do and interact with people.
Well, President John Smarrelli, I greatly appreciate all you do, not only here in the Mid-South, but just around our nation. You guys are a huge catalyst for bringing students into the Mid-South, and as you said, keeping them right here. So it's amazing what you're doing on campus, off campus. Greatly appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing. So you are a change maker. Thank you for all you do.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. It's great to be here. Thank you very, very much, Jeremy.
Thank you for listening to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance. To learn more about our guests and to share your stories of others leading by example, visit us online at citycurrent.com. Connect with us online using @citycurrent or follow the conversation using the hashtag ChangeMakers. Now, think big, start small, and act now. Be a change maker.